Hey guys, I'm back making a second video for some reason. Really surprised with the first one. Like I thought me and my kid and maybe like two random people would watch it, but I don't think it's huge numbers by YouTube standards, but like 111 views. I got like 8 subscribers. Thanks guys, it means a lot. And some great comments that really meant a lot to hear. It's good to hear what other people are going through and the struggle people are feeling right now. I think it's a downtime, but it's also a great time. It seems like a lot of people are kind of finding themselves again and just going on their own path, which is kind of what I'm feeling like. So it's kind of why I'm recording this. But the other reason to make these videos that I've always kind of been called to is to discuss my journey, my life path, kind of specifically to addiction. I've always wanted to kind of tell my story, or been, just had this urge to maybe I should write a book, or I actually did start writing a book at one point last year. I think I got like 4 pages, writing and journaling. I'm not good at journaling. Like I'm trying to do it again, but it's a struggle for me. I'm supreme ADHD, very distracted. When I get into something, I really get into it. But other than that, it's a mystery, where my mind goes. So back to my journey. I figured maybe, hey, 111 people watched my last one. If one person could watch it that hears my story and kind of it clicks something in them, like that would be amazing. That would be worth it. So I grew up, backstory. Grew up, went to a Lutheran Christian school from kindergarten through 8th grade. Pretty much with 1 or 2 additions, the same 8 boys, 8 girls, all the way from kindergarten through 8th grade. It was great. I always kind of, I don't know, even from a young age, the religion thing just kind of never really sat with me right? Like I was into it. That's what, every Sunday go to church, do this. It was fine. But then, getting to 7th and 8th grade, you start going through confirmation classes in Lutheran religion. So the pastors would come in, teach for an hour or whatever, read the Bible, go through this. And, I always kind of had questions. And it was, I was always labeled a troublemaker from young age. I'm out there, I like to talk. I like to goof around. I think I always try to be respectful. That wasn't always the case, but, I just like to have a good time. And I've always questioned things, not when a kid questions, it's always kind of taken as, you're being rebellious or you're just being a little shit. Which that might have been the case sometimes. I do feel that nature. But, I've always questioned things. And when it came to the confirmation class religion, everybody's all into it. And I just kind of never felt like the story of Adam and Eve. I was always just kind of like, so 2 people went into this garden. 2 people started everybody on the planet. Like, all right, we are all inbred. Like, that never made sense. Like, where were the dinosaurs? The Bible's 2,000 years old, I've always had questions, and that wasn't looked upon kindly. Like I was just trying to make trouble, but I genuinely just wanted answers, but there weren't answers for a kid. This is when you're supposed to be coming into your religion and accepting God, and accepting Jesus as your savior. And I was just like, they're not even answering my questions, like how can I really get behind this? But obviously I was confirmed, everything was great. Go to high school, go to the public school. Now it's a bunch of people. I was pretty timid, like for someone that is always goofing around and seems outgoing and all this. I've always inside felt just like, anxiety and less than, I didn't feel good. I was always like an overweight kid, big boy, still I'm a big boy. I've lost some weight, but so I just had terrible, self-confidence. So going to going to high school, I decided to play football. I had one other friend going to school with me, and he was going to play football too. So I figured that's a great way, summer beforehand, to meet. I played baseball with a lot of these kids growing up, but it wasn't like we hung out constantly. So just to get, more of a relationship, played football. Freshman year was great, kind of did that thing. But then the sophomore year hit. Me and my best friend that played football, kind of ended freshman year, split ways. I don't really know what happened to this day, what my part of one was, or what his part was. We split ways. It happens. Kids are kids. And then I had another friend that came up from, my parochial school, and started hanging out with him more. And, he was also a troublemaker, and we kind of delved into the stoner crowd, the fun crowd, the kind of rebellious crowd. I was always kind of both ways, like I was serious, tried to study early on. But, as I got into drinking's more fun, smoking pot's more fun, hanging out with my friends after school is way more fun on the weekends. School just kind of got in the way, started veering off, grades going down. I'd always never got in big trouble. I would just always kind of stay right below the radar, not get in too much trouble where it was, my rights are taken away, my privileges get grounded. But, just continued through high school, made it, graduated with not a great GPA, 2.5 to 2.7, somewhere in there, a C student, Got into college by the skin of my teeth. I was accepted into Western Michigan University. I was accepted on academic probation before I even started college. I didn't even know that was a thing, but I was just happy to get in, so I didn't care. Getting out of my hometown, not far away, but getting out and exploring. So getting to college, party, more than study, just like high school, gets kind of worse. After 4 years, I'm still short of graduating, and I want out. Like, I want to get away even more. So my friend, best friend John, was moving out to Colorado with his girlfriend. So I kind of had always been a third wheel with them, and I was like, can I go? So they agreed. So I moved out to Colorado with them after college. Kind of dropped out of college, didn't finish, didn't really care. Started my journey. In Colorado for a little while. Job was hard. Couldn't really find a job. It was a rough time out there. So I was only there about 6 to 10 months, and then had to move back home. Tail between my legs, broke, looking for a job. So moved back home with my parents for the first time in 3, 4, 5 years, and found a job with a huge company, Whirlpool, in the area, and just kind of went into customer service with them. Did it for a year and loved it. Started going out, met a lot of people there that like to have fun. Kind of clicked with a few people I knew in high school, got back together with them. And this is kind of when drinking Brian became a thing. Like, Brian was having too much fun. Never taking life too seriously, just kind of messing around. Always had the mentality, enjoy the day. You don't know when you're gonna. I knew a lot of friends growing up, a lot of people that died young, nothing too close, but I just wanted to enjoy life while I could, never got in too much trouble, never got in trouble with the law ever. We'll talk about that later, but yeah. So I moved back home, working for this big company, just, living in my parents' basement and drinking on the weekends. And I reconnected with my high school girlfriend, who was going to school in Chicago. So after a year of living at home, we kind of reconnected, and I moved to Chicago. Got a job there, got an apartment of my own, first place on my own, and made the trip. Working for another big company, bunch of 20-some young adults working, partying, having fun. You know, you're making decent money in Chicago, pretty much just living to pay rent and go out. What you do in your 20s, right? Before you want to get serious. Around age 22, 23, that's probably when I first admitted to myself I was an alcoholic. You know, it wasn't affecting my life in any way. Like, I had a good job. I paid my bills, mostly. I'm never great at that. But one night I was sitting there, and I lived above like a restaurant and a little Mexican grocery store. And I would just go down there, you know, every other night, scrape together enough to go buy a pint, and I would just sit there and have a couple of drinks. And one night I was just like, man, I think I drink every night now. And I was just like, you know, like I remember scraping together like $5, $4, $3, whatever it was at the time, to go buy like a pint of vodka downstairs. And I was just like, this is getting scary, you know, like I'm just alone tonight. It was like a weeknight in my apartment, just a work night, and I had to do that. But like I said, it wasn't affecting my life, but I was just like, all right, I'm a functioning alcoholic, right? Like, I kind of took it as a badge of honor, just kind of like how I didn't finish college and it never really obviously affected, but I always had a good job. I always moved up. So I kind of liked that chip on my shoulder that I didn't need that. I just could do my own thing, and I was special, you know. So continue another probably 5-6 years in Chicago, working a really great job. It was a startup company, moving up into management, but started drinking a lot. Started to affect me. That's when it started to affect my life. I wasn't fired for that, but I did lose my job after a few years they had hired a guy. It was a shipping company, right? Logistics. They'd hired some guy that was doing international stuff, and I was booking some shipments through him because that's why they brought him in. And apparently he was still using his own company they had purchased and doing some shady stuff on the side. Like, I think he had given me like $100 to book a load, but that stuff happens. I didn't think it was a big deal. So, you know, one day I get called into there's two founders of the company that were very well-to-do, very intimidating. I get called into one of their offices, very kind of dark in the back. He was rarely there. I go in and he starts just grilling me about this guy they had hired and what business I was doing with him through the company. And I'm just like, what, you know, really just confused. Where's this coming from? Anyways, end up going over to another vice president, and he just says, you know, lets me go, you're fired. I'm just like, what did I do? You know, things were going so well, in a sense. You know, my life was kind of starting to get out of control, but this was a breaking point, right? So, lose my job, go home, have to tell my now wife, we had just gotten married a couple of years ago, lost my job, and I was just humiliated, right? Like, my sense of pride just boom. So I spent the next, I don't even know, like, my timelines are very, I've had some concussions in my life, football, bicycle accidents, automobile accidents. So between that, drinking and smoking a lot of weed, doing other drugs, my memory's terrible. So I've sat down and tried to put these timelines together, but my dates are approximate. So, you know, it was around a year that I was unemployed, and, you know, I had taken maybe 2 jobs in between, 2 or 3, that were just, well, I had sat at home unemployed, like this depression just sank in that was so deep. Like my pride, my self-confidence was just in the basement. So while I was sitting home trying to find a job that would, you know, be as great, I'm drinking during the day. My wife's at work. I'm just, you know, I'm drinking. I'm just, you know, calming my nerves. That's what it was, you know, like, these are stressful times. You know, I'm looking for a job. And it just started to spin out of control. It was around a year, where I ended up one day, I remember I was in my apartment. It's fuzzy, but I started basically hallucinating. I thought people were there that I was talking to that weren't. My wife, I think, had gone to a Cubs game with a coworker, and I had talked to her somehow. She was talking to me, calling me, and I thought she was there, and she was just like, what are you talking? And suddenly I think she realized like something's not right. Like he's lost his shit. So I remember going to the emergency room there in Chicago. I don't remember how I got there. If I went by myself or if my parents took my dad. I don't remember. I honestly don't remember. I can ask them. But I ended up going in, and I just, had been drinking so much that, my body and my brain were just shutting down. I was hiding how much I was drinking because I was ashamed of it, and just a depression spiral. And I think I ended up being put into a coma. Like I'd woke up at one point in ICU and didn't know where I was. I thought I was in a hotel, and I ended up just ripping out my IVs and just started walking down the hall of wherever I was in the hospital in downtown Chicago. And I remember a doctor coming at me, and he's like, whoa, where are you going? I'm like, I was gonna go up to my room. Like, I want to check in. And he's just like, probably like, holy shit, this guy. He's like, all right, come with me. So he takes me back to the bed. I can't remember this. And they put my IV back in, tie me to the bed, and give me something to go night-night. I think I was in a medically induced coma for a couple of days. But coming out of that, I was very groggy. And obviously my wife, my family's concerned, like, do you need to go? Yes, of course I needed to go to rehab treatment center. But I was like, no, I'm done. I'm not going to drink. I don't know like that was crazy. So I remember I stopped drinking, and I was so weak, and just took some time and started looking for jobs. And then I started drinking at some point again, and eventually decided I needed to move away from Chicago. So I actually moved back home with my parents again. I know things are great, just depressed, and now I can't even function. So moved back home with my parents while my wife stayed there and worked. She had a great job, and tried to get my shit together. So that's where we'll start part 2.